I had never believed a single moment could flip a person's life, but that December, the moment came wrapped in cold air, blinking streetlights, and a girl whose smile carried more sadness than she ever admitted. It started on an ordinary evening when snowflakes drifted across the city, and I, half joking and half tired of my lonely Decembers, said, "I'll pretend to be your boyfriend on Christmas Eve." She stopped walking. The wind paused with her. And when she looked at me, her eyes held a quiet hurricane that made my chest feel both heavy and warm. "Pretend, or real," she whispered, as if she already knew that the joke I made wasn't just a joke. That moment, the way her voice trembled, the way her breath fogged the air like unspoken dreams, became the hook that pulled me into a story I never knew my heart was waiting to live. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected love, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. Your support truly means a lot. I had known her, Isla, for almost a year, but only in scattered ways. We worked in the same office building but on different floors. Our interactions were the small, accidental kind, shared elevators, rushed mornings, and the occasional exchange of smiles that held more meaning than either of us dared to acknowledge. She always looked tired but gentle, like someone fighting silent battles every day while pretending everything was fine. I, on the other hand, was simply drifting, getting through days without purpose, surviving one quiet heartbreak after another, and convincing myself I was fine when loneliness had already built a home inside my chest. That evening, when the city lights glowed against the early winter darkness, Isla told me she dreaded Christmas. Not because she disliked the holiday, but because it reminded her of everything she lost: her father, her childhood home, and the warmth that once wrapped her life. She didn't want to attend her family gathering alone. They always asked why she wasn't seeing anyone, why she was still behind, why her life didn't look the way they expected. I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the pressure she carried with a forced smile. I knew that feeling too well. That's why the joke slipped out of my mouth, lighthearted, careless, but filled with an honesty I wasn't prepared to acknowledge. After she asked her question, we didn't speak for a few seconds. Snowflakes landed on her coat. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing a soft Christmas melody on a street violin. The world felt too still. Then she lowered her gaze, perhaps embarrassed, and murmured that she didn't mean it. But something in her voice told me she did. And something in my heart told me I couldn't walk away. Over the next few days, we began talking, truly talking. She told me about her childhood, how Christmas used to be her favorite season because her father would decorate their home as if it were a movie set. She spoke of loss, of how grief didn't hit like a storm but slowly hollowed you out, year after year. I shared my story too, how my last relationship left a bruise I pretended didn't hurt, and how I'd grown afraid of letting people close again. Somewhere in those conversations, I realized that Isla didn't need someone to pretend. She needed someone to stand beside her, even if it was just for one day, with sincerity, not performance. The week before Christmas, we shopped for a simple gift she could give her mother. She wanted something meaningful but not expensive. We walked through markets lit with strings of gold, the air scented with cinnamon and roasted nuts. She held onto my sleeve without realizing it, and each accidental touch felt like a spark traveling straight into my chest. I found myself studying her when she wasn't looking, the way her eyebrows lifted slightly when she saw something she liked, the dimples that appeared only when she laughed fully, the sadness she tried to hide when she thought someone else might need to feel happier than her. I began to understand that her pain wasn't temporary, it was woven into her life like threads of winter that refused to melt. Yet she carried it with grace. On Christmas Eve, I picked her up. She wore a light brown coat, simple makeup, and a scarf that still smelled faintly of vanilla from the bakery where she sometimes bought pastries to cheer herself up. When she saw me, something softened in her expression, as if she finally allowed herself to feel not alone. She didn't say much as we drove to her family home. Her trembling hands said everything instead. I wanted to reach for them, but I didn't. I was scared of overstepping, of wanting too much from something that wasn't declared real yet. When we arrived, her mother welcomed us warmly. Her relatives were polite but curious, their eyes filled with the quiet suspicion families often hold toward new faces. Through the evening, I noticed how they questioned her, gently but repeatedly. Why she wasn't doing more in her career. Why she wasn't married yet. Why she looked tired. The things people ask out of love but without understanding the weight of their words. I saw her shrinking inside, even while she smiled. So I stepped closer, casually placed my arm behind her chair, not touching her, just there, offering presence. When she glanced at me, her eyes shone with a gratitude I felt deep in my bones. At one point, her mother asked how long we'd been together. Isla froze. Her breath caught. And instead of waiting for her to respond, I gently answered that we were taking things slow but meaningful. Isla didn't look at me, she looked through me, into something she needed and finally found. I watched her shoulders relax for the first time that evening. After dinner, when everyone dispersed into different rooms, we stepped outside into the backyard. The snow glowed under the moonlight. The air was quiet, except for our breathing. She apologized for putting me through everything, and I told her she didn't put me through anything, I chose to be here. She looked up at me then, eyes glassy with unshed tears. And for the first time, she admitted she didn't want me to pretend. Not tonight. Not anymore. I don't know who moved first, her or me, but suddenly she was in my arms, her forehead against my chest, breathing unevenly as if she'd been holding her emotions inside for years. I wrapped my arms around her and felt something shift, not just in her, but in me. Something opened. Something healed. I realized I wasn't lonely anymore. I realized she didn't need saving. She needed someone who understood the quiet, difficult language of her heart. And I needed someone who made me feel seen without forcing me to be someone I wasn't. When I drove her home later, she rested her head on my shoulder at a red light. She whispered that she wasn't ready for love yet, but she was ready to stop running away from the possibility of it. That was enough. More than enough. Because for the first time in years, I felt that slow, brave spark of hope growing inside me, not rushing, not demanding, just quietly asking for time. Or for the next weeks, we met often in coffee shops, snowy walks, long conversations in her small apartment where candles flickered like fragile dreams. We didn't label anything, yet everything between us moved like a melody that needed no explanation. I noticed how she slowly laughed more, how her eyes held less heaviness, how she let herself be vulnerable without apologizing for it. And she noticed me too, the parts one hid, the fears I never expressed, the things I pretended didn't hurt. We became each other's gentle place in a world that often wasn't gentle at all. A winter began to melt slowly, but what had grown between us didn't. It stayed, warm and real, like something built with patience instead of impulse. One evening, on another quiet December night exactly 1 year later, we walked the same street where everything began. Snow drifted softly around us. She brushed her fingers against mine and smiled in that way she did when words weren't needed. And then she said something that froze me completely, not out of shock but out of overwhelming warmth. She whispered, "Last year you joked about pretending. This year, you don't have to pretend at all." I took her hand fully then, without hesitation, and realized that sometimes life doesn't give us perfect beginnings, it gives us imperfect moments that turn into perfect memories. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us create more stories that bring warmth, hope, and emotion to others. A special request: before the story ends, please comment below what part of this journey connected with your heart the most.